No one wants to be infected with a certain disease, especially dangerous diseases even related to their own life. The health of your digestive system and the proper balance of your gut's microbiome, the beneficial bacteria living within your gut, directly affects your immune system and the overall health of your body. When your intestinal tract isn't performing well, it can become a breeding ground for disease and deadly cancers. This is why it is important to try to reduce the risk of certain types of cancers through consuming the right foods, making the best nutritional choices, and reading food labels in order to double-check for risky ingredients. Many of the most common and deadly types of cancers related to the gastrointestinal system. It isn't surprising that people can modify their risk of getting these sorts of cancers with their food choices. Truth be told, there are foods that, for the sake of health and longevity, we should not be eating at all, or, at the very least, eating only rarely. There are even foods you have to stop eating at all costs if you don't want them to wreak havoc on your body and the risk that in the long run you will get nasty cancers that can take your life. 15 foods you should never eat if you don't want cancer. 1. Highly processed foods. We've long known that processed foods with an excess of sugar, sodium, saturated fats, and chemical ingredients can contribute to health conditions such as heart disease, diabetes, and obesity, but cancer? According to a study by French and Brazilian researchers, a 10% increase in consumption of ultra-processed foods was associated with a 12% increase in the risk of overall cancer and an 11% increase in breast cancer. So, what qualifies as an ultra-processed food? Things like mass-produced bread and baked goods, soda, instant noodles and soups, salty and sweet snacks, and chicken nuggets. Less processed foods, such as pasta, canned vegetables, and freshly baked bread, weren't found to raise cancer risks. 2. Crispy potatoes. Those perfectly darkened to a crisp potatoes may not be so perfect after all. They may actually be carcinogenic. According to a study from the UK's Food Standards Agency, FSA, the culprit is acrylamide, a chemical that's created when starchy foods are cooked at high temperatures. Even though a desired browned crispness may seem natural when cooking starches, it can potentially increase risk of cancer and possibly affect nervous and reproductive systems. Burnt or blackened starches have the highest amounts of the toxin, and darkly toasted bread is also a problem. To limit acrylamide creation and consumption, the FSA recommends cooking starches to a light golden color instead of a dark brown. 3. Alcohol. Here are some sobering statistics. Having just one alcoholic beverage per day could increase your risk of breast cancer by 5%, your risk of oropharyngeal cancer by 17%, and your risk of esophageal cancer by 30%. According to the American Society of Clinical Oncology, ASCO, those numbers go up significantly the more you drink, with those who have more than 4 drinks per day incurring 5 times the risk of various throat cancers. ASCO also notes that an estimated 5% of new cancers and 6% of cancer deaths worldwide can be directly linked to alcohol consumption. So you may want to skip that next round, and cut back on the cocktails in general. 4. Barbecue. Grill aficionados, beware. High intake of meat, particularly well-cooked meat, has been associated with increased risk of cancers, says Mia Gaudet, Ph.D., Scientific Director of Epidemiology Research for the American Cancer Society, ACS. The problem seems to be that cooking meat on a grill leads to the production of carcinogenic compounds known as PAHs, she says. Essentially, the mouthwatering char marks on a flame-broiled burger or steak are the sign of chemicals that may not be as good for you as they taste. In studies, rodents that were fed high amounts of these compounds developed cancerous tumors. Even burnt toast has some, but in much smaller amounts, says Gaudet. So if you regularly cook your meat at very high temperatures, you may want to consider alternate methods. 5. Farmed fish. Commercial fish farming involves raising an incredible number of fish, such as salmon, in a crowded environment. More than 60% of the salmon consumed in the United States comes from a farming operation where they are treated with antibiotics, pesticides, and other carcinogenic chemicals to try and control the bacterial, viral, and parasitic outbreaks that result from cramming so many fish in a small space. Farmed fish also don't have as much omega-3 as wild salmon. 6. Red meat. No matter how you cook it, consuming red meat may increase your risk of cancer. Eating red meat has been linked to pancreatic, colorectal, and stomach cancers, and the World Health Organization labeled it as probably carcinogenic in the 2015 report that also gave processed meats the thumbs down. Furthermore, researchers from the University of Leeds, who studied more than 32,000 women over 17 years, found that those who regularly ate red meat had higher rates of distal colon cancer, area where feces are stored, compared to those who followed a red meat-free diet. While that study did not explore the reason, other researchers observing the stool of men and women who consumed a high meat diet saw high levels of N-nitroso compounds, NOCs, which are potentially cancer-causing chemicals. 7. Bagels, white bread, and white rice. Even if you've never smoked, eating a diet rich in certain high glycemic index foods can increase your risk of lung cancer by 49%, according to researchers from the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center. Eating high glycemic foods quickly elevates your blood sugar and increases the presence of insulin-like growth factors that are linked to an increased lung cancer risk, according to the researchers. You don't have to ditch all carbs. Choose lower glycemic index options. 8. Very hot coffee. Scientists at the World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer say coffee itself is not carcinogenic, but they do add this caveat. Coffee, or tea, consumed at very high temperatures can increase the risk of esophageal cancer. It's not that high temps activate some kind of carcinogenic compound, it's that constantly scalding your throat with hot liquid could lead to tumor development. According to another study published in the Annals of Internal Medicine that looked at tea drinkers, if you also smoke and drink alcohol in excess, you raise your risk 5-fold. So let your beverage of choice cool off a bit before drinking it, and cool it on the other risky behaviors, too. 9. Sweets or sugar. Cutting dietary sugar can cut your risk of cancer. One study found that women who'd consumed the most sweets increased their risk of breast cancer by 27%. As glucose and insulin rise, they boost estrogen levels, and that can potentially lead to breast cancer. Another study, published in the journal Nature Communications, found that sugar stimulates tumor growth. Cancer cells need lots of quick energy to grow, more so than regular cells, and consuming high amounts of sugar helps feed them. 10. Dairy products. Men, this one is specific to you. Consuming too much dairy may increase your risk of prostate cancer. And though milk has been studied the most, ice cream, cheese, and other assorted milk-based products may also be a problem. According to Healthline, some researchers believe the strong associations between milk intake and prostate cancer may be due to milk's fat, calcium, and hormone content, while others theorize that ingesting dairy could alter vitamin D and testosterone levels. A 2016 study deemed the dairy cancer link inconclusive, but if you're at risk for prostate cancer or already have it, talk to your doctor about your diet. 11. Microwave popcorn. It's not the popcorn that's the problem here, it's the popcorn bag, the inside of which contains a chemical that keeps kernels from sticking to it. As the bag heats up, the coating decomposes, creating perfluorooctanoic acid, which has been linked to an increased risk of liver and prostate cancers. To avoid this chemical, make your own popcorn. 12. Saturated fat. While past studies have shown a link between dietary cholesterol and colon cancer, researchers did not understand the exact mechanism behind it, until now. Researchers at UCLA who studied cholesterol in rats found that high levels increased the replication of intestinal stem cells, ISCs, which in turn spurred the growth of gut tissue lining, and also sped the growth of tumor cells, causing them to grow 100 times faster. Yes, you read that right, 100 times faster. While past research had conjectured that a diet high in saturated fat might increase risk for a variety of cancers, including lung, breast, and prostate, more recent thinking is that it's your sources of dietary fat matter most. 13. Soda. According to Australian researchers, just one soft drink per day raises your risk for a bevy of cancers, including liver, prostate, ovary, and gallbladder. In this study, obesity and other weight considerations weren't found to be a factor in cancer development, just drinking sugar-laden drinks. And don't think you're safe choosing diet sodas either. Previous studies have linked artificial sweeteners to obesity, stroke, and dementia, as well as cancer. 14. High salt foods. There are a few reasons to avoid foods with a high salt volume, according to Victoria Manax, MD, the Chief Medical Officer at the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network and a trained oncologist. Too much salt leads to high blood pressure and has a high association with a greater risk of certain cancers, according to Dr. Manax. These include cancers of the stomach, nose, throat, and pancreas. Individuals who are most at risk for developing health-related issues due to a salty diet include people over the age of 50 and people with diabetes, she says. All of these risk factors also mirror some of the risk factors associated with pancreatic cancer. Plus, a high salt intake causes other health issues such as cardiovascular disease, osteoporosis, and obesity. 15. Canned tomatoes and sauces. Manufacturers use bisphenol A, BPA, in certain kinds of plastics and, until recently, the linings of cans used for canned goods. The problem? BPA can interfere with the body's natural production of sex hormones, upping the risk for breast and prostate cancer. Because of their high acidity, tomatoes tend to leach the chemical from the can lining, making them a much more concentrated source of BPA. While many manufacturers have begun phasing out the use of BPA, you may want to get your tomatoes and acidic citrus fruits fresh. Memorize. No matter what your diet looks like, it's never too late to make some minor, or even major, adjustments to your overall routine and dramatically reduce your risk of coming into contact with even a single type of cancer. If you control what goes in your body with steadfast determination, and you check labels, eat healthy ingredients, and keep away from these 13 foods, you're sure to have a lifestyle free of concern that one day you might contract deadly cancer.